Fine. Okay, I'm going to start because we're on a tight schedule. This will be a change of pace. I'm Philip Elmer DeWitt. I write a blog for Apple investors called Apple 3.0, and I'm going to tell you the story of Apple 3.0. It starts in Lexington, Massachusetts, where I grew up. Progressive town. We still on? Yep. Progressive town. Close to Boston, driving distance to Route 128, which is like the East Coast equivalent of Silicon Valley, sort of. They had the foresight to offer a computer class in 1966, which I took. We were connected by acoustic modem to Bohl, Beranek, and Newman, which had been pioneering time sharing, where a lot of people could use one computer at a time. Mr. Newman of Bohl, Beranek, and Newman turned out to be a neighbor just down the street. My mom finagled a job for me. And I spent 4 summers at BBN Industries, which was a hotbed of MIT hackers who'd been given a lot of expensive DEC equipment, and they were madly trying to hook up all the computers in the world. They were one of the nodes on the ARPANET, which ended up being the internet. This guy had to choose how to separate a name from an address on the internet, and he chose the @ key. He's famous for it, Ray Tomlinson. I was in a different division. We were trying to get computers into the schools, and I was working with a guy named Seymour Papert, who was from the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. And he had written a language called Logo. It was a subset of Lisp, which was everybody in MIT was using Lisp, a recursive language. And if he had won the battle, all our kids would be growing up as little baby Lisp programmers. But of course, Bill Gates won that battle. Everybody grew up using Microsoft Basic. I went to a hippie college where the only computer was an IBM that ran on punch cards. So I became an English major, dropped out of a couple of graduate schools, Berkeley in English, Columbia in journalism, and landed on my feet at Time Magazine, luckily. I was a temporary secretary replacing an old friend from Oberlin. This is me. We were researching the space shuttle, and yeah, and I was studying the specs of the space shuttle, and I had a really bad feeling. I didn't like all those tiles. Apple, Time at the time was getting a lot of Apple ads and didn't have many stories to go with it. So they were looking for someone to write computer stories. I got assigned to report a cover on Computer Whiz Kids. I knew from my high school experience that if I went to a school that had computers early enough in the morning, there'd be a line of kids waiting to get in. And that ended up being the lead of this cover story, which got the editor's attention. Then they went all in for computers. Instead of a man of the year, they chose the machine of the year. Cool. They asked me what computer I wanted. They thought I'd buy an IBM PC. I said, no. The BBN guys hated IBM. So I bought an Apple, of course, and spent the next few years reporting about the computer industry, really angry, because I was watching all these salesmen and everybody was going with IBM, and Apple was getting left out. It was painful. I finally learned how to write a Time story. It took many years. Everything I wrote was rewritten from top to bottom. This was my first cover story. They wanted me to write a cover story about artificial intelligence, and I just knew that what was coming up in the editors' minds when we said those words was nothing like what the industry could deliver. So I ended up dividing the cover into 2 parts. I wrote the supercomputer half. This was computers that are fast and smart. Supercomputers were a real thing. The smart thing ended up being expert systems, which to me seemed like, from my MIT Artificial Intelligence Lab experience, seemed like a parlor trick, which a lot of AI still seems to me. I was desperate to get on the internet. The only way to get on the internet then was through Stewart Brand's Whole Earth Electronic Link, which was a wonderful, wonderful place. You had to use real names, and that kept all the chatter reasonable. You owned your own words. And it was my model for what a good internet conversation would be like. Time wanted to get themselves on the internet. They were going to go to CompuServe. I persuaded them to go with AOL, which ended up leading to the worst merger in the history of capitalism. Not my fault, I swear. I got the word internet on the cover of Time finally in, I forget what year. This was Time Warner's vision of the internet. A lot of TV screens funneling into your eyeball. I wrote that cover too. I got to go to Seattle to interview Bill Gates. He used to come to my office when he was a smaller. Anyway, he was really mean to me. He was in the middle of antitrust investigations. We got back at him by putting little devil horns behind his head.
Oh, nice.
With the M. I was proudest of this one, but I went back and reread it, and it just seemed so naive. I thought the internet was going to democratize everything, and we'd all, and I had no idea that we were going to end up with Facebook and Donald Trump. This was my last cover story, which blew up on me. I can tell you that story later. But it ended my career as a Time writer about technology. I landed on my feet again, became the science editor, which I did for 12 years, helped choose an AIDS researcher as the man of the year, helped choose Albert Einstein as the person of the century, edited 150 cover stories, and then they hired an editor who didn't think we should be doing science and technology and medicine on the cover. So I jumped ship and went out to San Francisco for a little publication that Time Inc. owned, that they brought me in as an executive editor to list the copy. They said it went bust in 9 months. But while I was there, the editor required everybody who worked there to start a blog. So the secretary had to write one, the art director had to write one, and I thought I might be able to make a little money. They were paying $5 per hits. So I chose Apple, and it quickly became the biggest blog at Business 2.0. It was called Apple 2.0. That's where the name comes from. Fortune reeled me in. I didn't like it very much, but they let me keep writing the blog. I hired an agent who kept upping how much they paid me, and then finally an editor said, Phil, I could hire 5 kids for what I'm paying you. So I didn't have to hear that twice. I made the blog my own, called it Apple 3.0, not the greatest name, but I'm stuck with it. And I started doing, because the Fortune librarian used to feed me all the Apple notes that the analysts wrote, my access to Apple analysts was the thing that I was bringing to the party. So I followed them very closely. Here I would follow their price target, the 12 months price targets. And what's going on here is the current price was higher than half of the analysts' 12 months estimates. I would say they were underwater. And I did that quite frequently. Every Sunday, I do a little thing where the subscribers can trade their Apple trading strategies. I do a little morning thing. Apple is red or green, or it's changed colors. I post the max. Everybody know what max pain is? Yep. That's the point where the most people who sold puts and bought options where the most money is going to be lost. This morning, I think it was at 2:30. The Call Mountain is at 2:30, so it's unlikely to go much higher than that today. We would follow the quarterly earnings reports really closely, made a game of it, called the Earnings Smackdown, turned my subscribers into, I turned analysis into a participatory sport where the subscribers could compare their models to the pros. This is the kind of data that we would get. The pros are down on the bottom in blue, the amateurs are in green, and the best estimates are in bright green, the worst in red. So you can see, and the joke of this thing is that almost every quarter, the amateurs beat the pros. That's because they're not as constrained as the pros, I assume. So I would do a best and worst every quarter. And here again, the joke is that the best analysts are the amateurs. So I have this blog. I'm using the well standards of you have to use your own name, you own your own words. I kind of divide my subscribers into cowboys and farmers. The farmers bought Apple and just hold it. The cowboys are buying and selling, they're doing options. I try to get them to get along. Anyway, someone said it was really what a blog is a place for people to talk to each other. And someone said that my blog provides what it says there. I did a survey to see how deeply invested my subscribers were in Apple. I did it about a month ago. The blue dots on the top are the people who have 100% of their portfolio in Apple. And it turned out a third of them do. 90% have either, more than half have either 90%. You'd expect a distribution curve that looked like this. Horace made this chart for me. You can tell that we're way over-invested in Apple, my guys. And someone said it's a support group for Apple millionaires who refuse to diversify. I found out when they bought their Apple. The most popular time, the year to buy it was the year that Steve Jobs returned to Apple. The main thing is that they haven't been buying lately because the stock is really expensive. So that's Apple 3.0. It costs, I charge $20 a month. It's all behind a paywall. It's $200 a year. If you subscribe today, if you're not already a subscriber, and you sign up for $200, I'll send $100 back to you.